Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. Bon après-midi. Hola. Yep. You hear that noise? I am on the patio this afternoon. I decided to come back to the patio. We haven't been on the patio for a while. The weather is not so bad. I do have a little fan here on the table, so it's not too uncomfortable, and it is kind of circling. So, welcome. Hola, good afternoon. Hey María, ¿cómo estás? Estoy bien. My second Spanish class canceled, so I had some time. I cooked some fish and I ate, so I am good to go. Yes. Hola, good afternoon. My eyes have been real blurry this week. I wonder what's going on. Like at night when I'm sitting um, in front of the computer, it just looks really blurry, and I'm like, ooh, so I can't really work on the computer late at night. I need daylight to help out. But I haven't had my eye checked in a while, so I need to do that. What are they gonna tell me? Those eyes are getting old. I know that. You don't need to tell me. I know that I know. Hola. So last week we did the Spanish class, and I said I was going to rotate between the Spanish class, waiting for waiting for you. Huh? Who's waiting for me? I'm checking Facebook. It says waiting for you. Yeah, so we did the class, and a lot of people enjoy the Spanish class that I did. The free Spanish class. Of course, I tell them I can't go into as many details as I do with my regular classes. That would be cheating them. I don't want to do that. But we talked about the importance of learning a language in a new country, how it connects you with the people, and the importance of culture as you're learning a language. Why do they do the things they do? Why do they move around this way? Why do they believe those things? And there's always a story attached to that, right? In the past, like our history. So, learning a language is so important, and then, of course, once you start watching somebody doing something about language and you get all these things, thank you, the algorithm, keeps sending you the same type of information. So it's like I'm bombarded with people doing Spanish stuff. And I follow each one of them because they each come up with like little snippets of, like adverbs and how they say things. And they also mention that Yes, a lot of info in that class. Um, little nuances. As they say, they have a name for it. That in each country they have a slang, what we call slang, right? On how they say something. I know in Panama we have our own, and apparently every country has that. You say I'm tired, they say it's something else. You say hola, but over here it's kisopa. They just have their own little flavor. So you got to learn the language first and then learn the slang, right? So that was good. So I said I would do that on a rotating basis. I was going to do the Spanish class, something about mental health, because I think it's important, especially in this day and age that we are in, with everybody feeling so. I mean, I'm hearing, and I hope some of my sisters on the other side can join in or watch this, because we all need mutual support with everything that we're going through right now, right? And if we don't manage it, the results will be disastrous, right? And so I think it's important to come every 3 weeks and just check in and see how you're doing. We had a mental health person talk to our group this week, and one of our sisters who is was participating remotely, she said, well, I was feeling all these things because she's kind of packing her house, sold her car. So she's going through a lot of emotions, right? And that's why we want to talk about when we come together every 3 weeks here on this live, is just check in, say how you doing, whether you're staying over in the US, whether you are planning your escape or whether you've already transitioned and you kind of readjusting to a new life, because all these carry their own set of issues. People think that if you say, oh, I'm leaving, I'm too stressed, I'm going to move to another country, and then you're not going to have stress, well, I got news for you. It's a whole different kind of stress. So the idea is to be aware, have support, and have the skills that you need to manage it. Each, um, what's the word? We say temporada in Espanol. Each season, right? Each um, journey or what's happening in your life, you have to be in tune to what's happening to say, oh, that's what's going on. So you don't keep saying, I don't understand why I'm feeling this way. Yes, you should. You should understand. And that's what I want to get you to kind of focus on. Nobody is crazy. What you're feeling, you just to acknowledge it for what it is. I'm going through some things. I'm going through some changes. Yes, I'm going to be grieving that. Yes. So today it's all about health. When people talk about, first of all, let's describe what mental health is. We talk about generalized health, your body, right? We're thinking about blood pressure, blood sugar, our labs, right? Our joints, arthritis, pain, and all that. That's great. So we do what we can to mitigate the negative effect of whatever that could affect our bodies, right? So we walk. And I keep telling you all the time, you eat right, you exercise, you move, you take your supplements if you have to. You eat well before you even think of the supplements, right? I'm not a big fan of supplements. But as you're doing the physical, when you say mental health, because the physical includes your brain, that's why I talk about the gut brain connection, that what you put in your mouth affects not just the rest of your body, the bloods, the cells in your body, but the brain, the mass in your head, inside your skull, also is part of your body. So mental health doesn't include that. Mental health usually includes your emotions, right? How you react to everyday life. Because one sign of maturity is that somebody is able to go through the different seasons of life in a healthy way. I remember when I was in nursing school, we had what we call the developmental stages of life, right? So you had to learn what the baby does at this age. And there were some expected skills that we wanted to check off. That at 3 months the baby is able to hold up his or her head. At 4 months they should be able to roll over and sit up at 6 months. All these targets and milestones. And then I remember we even studied preschooler, a kid in kindergarten, first grade, elementary school, middle school. There were specific things, whether they were just physical in terms of when you go to the doctor, remember they put him against that chart. Is he growing appropriately? Is he underweight, overweight? All those markers are things you expect in each stage of life. Then you get into adolescence. We're talking about making friends, being able to relate to your parents, and social skills. So there are targets, and all the way through adulthood until you kick the bucket, there are certain things that are expected milestones and targets. Hola, Ines Blanco, as you age. But the emotional part of it sometimes gets neglected, right? Because you see a child or a teenager, he looks good, he is buff, he's playing sports, and everybody's like, wow, he's so handsome. But sometimes we forget the emotional component. Maybe this kid has trouble, interacting with others. Maybe he's what we label them antisocial or violent behavior. We neglect that part. If somebody says to you that your child is mutilating the the family pet, that should ring alarm bells for you, because that is not normal, right? And a lot of people who commit horrendous crimes as adults, it started way back there, but no one paid attention or addressed it. Schizophrenia starts like in middle school, high school. The disease of the brain that make them just lose touch with reality, hearing voices and committing heinous acts. That's a disease. So we are primed as a society on the other side to look at the physical and neglect the mental, the emotional. And this is the thing that we want to talk about here, because in this temporada, in this season, we are older, right? Whatever happened in the past, if we didn't address it, it's kind of too late. But it's never too late to turn something around, right? So when I think about mental health, I'm talking about your emotions, how you move through life, how you handle stress, how you deal with relationships, your children, your spouse, your partner, your friends, people at work, right? Because everybody is born in a nuclear family, but we are social beings. Just traveling to Panama will be so emotional for me. It's coming to learn about this beautiful land where my late mom was born. I have to come and visit first to see how, yes, it's important. But as we grow and we become adults, if we did not meet or hit those markers, like when you see children, right, in kindergarten, pre-K, you kind of observe to see, how does this child play with others? Does it display signs of bullying already as a 4-year-old? You got to watch those things and be sensitive to that, because like I said, it starts way back there. I remember this guy called James Dobson. He wrote a book called about the strong-willed child. And in that book, it kind of tells you how to deal with this child. Well, now in hindsight, we realize some of his suggestions were not that great, right? You know, some parents struggle with should we spank, shouldn't we spank? Some society says you can, some say you don't. But some parents don't just spank, they abuse. Fine line, correcting a child and abusing the child. Because once you start displaying those behaviors in the home, the child is going to learn that it's okay. It's the norm because that's what he's around. And what do you think he's going to do as an adult? Those are the kids who become the adult, who become abusers themselves because it's in the environment. Schizophrenia starts, that's one of the things they will tell you. A child who grew up in a violent home, whether it was the daddy just slapping the mom around for no reason or being abusive when he drinks, which it's always like, oh, he's drunk, like that's supposed to erase the behavior. No, right? So that's going to be a factor in this child's brain development. Oh my God, this is so important. And people don't realize that. Because in some cultures, you know, when they say children are to be seen, not heard, people are not good about hugging their babies. When you cheat a child, hi Lynette, when you cheat a child of mother's warmth, you know how when they take the babies after they just come out of the womb and they'll put them on the mother's chest, skin to skin? Because research is showing it is so important. They've done research, if you study that, you know, they'll take a newborn and they did that with the chimpanzees or the little monkeys, which, you know, why do that to the little monkeys? You know, my heart breaks for them too. They would take the little baby monkey and separate him from his mother. And some of them just turn around and die. That's how important familial closeness, tenderness, emotions, the hugging, the kissing, the interacting. Some cultures don't believe in that. My mother was not. I grew up in a single parent home. My parents divorced, I was like 4. I don't remember my mother ever hugging me. I don't. In some cultures, parents continue to feel that if they provide for you, what else do you need? That is not correct. Not providing the child with warmth, it kind of skews your mind as to what normal relationships are at home and with others. It's skewed. So from then, you're starting on the wrong foot anyway. So as you become an adult, you internalize those patterns and you replicate them at home. Oh, she's not touchy feely. That's supposed to be an excuse. No, it's not. It's a deficiency. Human being, look at the animals. You ever see how they envelope their babies? How they just licking them and the babies just go in and just suck all that warmth? If they need that, what about you? And we keep repeating these patterns with kids. And even as teenagers, they still need you to give him a hook, put your arm around them. When they turn into these people that you don't recognize, you're like, who is this? Is this my child? They still need your love. They need your touch. But a lot of us have been starved, literally starved of those emotional, what I'm looking for? Emotional key points. These are things that building blocks to turn you into, I wouldn't say normal, I don't know what normal is, but a human being who is emotionally stable and mature. So a lot of us went through our whole lives with this hole, that deficiency, that emotional deficiency. Yes. And unless you go to speak to a therapist or someone, I remember there is a program on TV. What do they call it again? It's in black and white. It will come to me, Aging Brain, where this guy interviews, and I think I mentioned that before, interviews kids or adults who are on the streets, you know? They're usually either with some mental disturbances based on everything I just told you. They didn't have in infancy, they have violent parents, there's no love, no connection in those homes. And not everybody is going to react to the deficiency in the same way. That is very important. Some people are going to go along like, oh, that doesn't bother me. Yes, it does. Oh, my mother was not a lovey dovey, therefore, what do you want? You know, just with your kids. No bueno. You're repeating the cycle. And unless you take stock and you say, you know what? Based on what Miss Maggie said, this is not good. I need to go look back and how can I break that pattern and start feeling my kids tank with the love and connection and acceptance that they need. We are human beings. We are not trees. And I always refer people to look at the animals and see how they treat their own. We are supposed to be above the animal, but boy, oh boy, we act worse than them. It is just such an embarrassing thing to say and so sad. So when you see your people in the news acting the fool with no humanity, no empathy, not caring about anyone but themselves, they've missed something. In infancy, when they were growing up, their tank is empty. And if they don't take stock and say, I need some help, let me see what happened in the back. And let me see, hola Cynthia, and let me see if I can veer and change course. Sometimes the mental health specialist may give you some assignment and say, I want you to go and hug your child every day. I want you to tell them, I love you. And then if you start practicing those things, something becomes a habit. 3 weeks of doing it systematically, you're going to change. But you got to want to do it up here. So we are reaping what we have missed. We have a society filled with people who are empty shells, emotionally deprived. So that's why you cannot expect good from those people. I was watching, I watch novelas at night, with my Spanish. And there was this young man, he's like early 20s. And again, he probably is an empty shell because no one filled his tank back there. And he is displaying, emotional instability. He's zeroing in on this girl. These people become, oh, it's prophet here. Hola. He's displaying all this behavior that somebody who's got maybe some schizophrenia and something going on. And his mother came to see him. And the way his body language changed. And then he just ripped her upside the head. And he was just so angry at her. You heard me say that last week, that one sister was talking to me, especially after the rash of violent assaults and murders of our sisters that we've been experiencing. And she said, and we're kind of older, so we've learned a few things. Those gray hairs we have them for a reason. And my friend said, you know what? I think all these guys who are killing their partners, all that comes from a deep seated hatred of women. You remember, I don't know if you remember the Oedipus complex, when kids are growing up and they're in love with their mothers. But if they don't have that connection with the mother, instead of loving her, they're going to hate her. And trust me, if you hate your mom, you're not going to love your wife. You're not going to love your daughter. I don't care what somebody sold you. If you've never learned how to love, to give unconditional love, to love someone just because, and not because they did something for you or because they always act the way you want, like your kids. If you're going to say, well, I like this one because she behaves, or I don't, love is not like that. And let me tell you, you can pretend in front of kids as much as you want. Kids are smart. Hola, Loda. Cynthia. Oh, yeah, Cynthia. These, you know, you cannot give what you don't have. If you are coming from an empty vessel, you cannot give it. That's when you would go to see someone like Tori, who is a licensed mental health person. But if you're walking around like everything is hunky dory, oh, it's getting warmer. Everything is hunky dory, nothing is wrong with you. That's just the way I am. And we walk around like it's a badge of honor. No, sis, you are sick emotionally. If you can feel sorry for someone, if you feel you're always right, if you feel like the world owes you everything, you're walking around with a big old block on your shoulder, and you like relish in your self-pity, something is not right. But anyway, let me get off that soapbox because this is something I'm passionate about. And that's why I tell people not everyone should be parents and not everybody should be in relationships because it's going to try you, it's going to reveal all the stuff that you are missing. You cannot tell me that you're going to be really intimate within your family, with your spouse, if you've never learned to do that back there. That's why those infancy, from the time a child is born, it is so important to pour into them. But okay, so now we're adults. We've lived our very unsatisfying lives because of the hole that we had in our infancy. No one talked to us about it. We never saw it as a problem. When I was doing my internship for nurse practitioner, I was in a clinic that saw everybody. It wasn't a psychiatric, it was like primary care. We saw everybody, addiction, diabetes, all kinds of things. And I was appalled, not appalled, but just surprised at how many young people were in our practice. Children coming with, 16, 17-year-old who were on medications, who could not function, could not keep a little job at McDonald's or Pizza Hut because their emotions were so out of whack. And I was like, oh my God. Now, even though in my family I did not have the lovey dovey, but we talked, there was no violence in my home. I grew up in a single family home. And again, my mother, whose cup was empty, didn't have anything to give me. But you know what? I had a neighbor who did. Hallelujah. There was a sister who was a neighbor. Well, my mother was out there trying to make money and prove herself to her family, to her father who had neglected her. My grandmother was just so, she was just totally oblivious to a lot of things. So I cannot even talk about holding her accountable for anything. She didn't know anything. She was just out there, just really. But my grandfather was like, and not in a nice way. So my mother grew up in that environment. Hola, Gertha. So she didn't have. If you don't have it, you can't give it. If it wasn't poured into you, you can't pour into me. But my neighbor, my mom was gone all week, so I would spend all week at my neighbor. She was a widow. She taught me how to cook, how to sew, how to be a young lady. She poured into me, and emotionally, I got attached to her. So my mom and I, we were cordial, but there wasn't really any, close relationship because she didn't have it, and she didn't see a need for it. But that lady, that angel that God put in my path, my parents were divorced, but my uncle lived with us. So he became my father figure. Listen, he poured into me. I love that man. So he became my father figure. So my tank is full, not because my parents poured it into me, but someone else did. So you have to understand that if you don't have it, you can get it somewhere else. Of course, nowadays you have to be careful who you ask to pour into your kids, right? Now we have the pedophiles and all that to worry about. Another level of stress. So I feel like I am whole because somebody else poured into me, but not everybody was as lucky as I was. I was blessed. Okay? So we are now adults, emotionally empty, a lot of us. We choose partners who were wrong for us. You were raised in a violent home, an abusive home, and guess what? You're attracted to the abuser because it smells good. It tells you all the right things. Like, oh, he's going somewhere. Instead of looking at the emotional health of that person. As much as somebody had poured into me, I still made the wrong choices. But you know what? I got to a point, I woke up and I was like, oh, no, no, But some of us never wake up from those relationships. We stay in because it's comfortable, because that's what we've always known. And we don't feel strong enough to branch out on our own. And we have been conditioned to believe that you are nothing without me. That's what the abuser will do. And this is not about abuse because that is a major issue. So now we're trying to, because I can't stay in the infancy, adolescence, and young adult. We got to move to our group here, age group. I told you that in each maybe not decades, but we go from infancy to elementary school to teenagehood to young adults to adults. Then we have midlife. Then we have the aged. I think we are in the age group right now. Even though now I read we have the young age, mid age, and not age, old, young, old, old, and very old. I was like, somebody's trying to publish a paper. Oh my God, Prophet Tori, feel free to, you're the expert. I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I was big on, writing prescriptions for my dementia patients and bipolar and all that, but you deal more with the emotional part. I'm good at it, but you better. That's what you do every day. I don't. There is always hope. You are right. Because you can't keep looking back, as I said. Your tank is not full, but why keep mourning what is not? You got to move forward, right? And the first step is to acknowledge, you know what? I think I'm missing something. Why can't I relate to my kids? Why do I feel a certain level of discomfort if somebody hugs me? I'm a hugger. Sometimes It's not good because some people, I had a friend, she was German. And I'm always hugging and she would step back. I'm like, oh, I forgot. Because in her culture, maintain that distance. So I'm really good now at like, testing the waters first. But now we have our midlife, as messy as our life was with families. Now we have older parents, the job. Oh my God. So, what I wrote here is that cultivating a healthy, now I call it mental health at home and abroad. And as I said, when we say mental, some people think crazy. No, ma'am, that is not what that means. It's more tied to your emotions about how you move through life. You could do a self assessment. You say, do I feel uncomfortable if somebody hugs me? Am I okay to hug somebody else? How do I relate to my kids, my siblings, my parents? Do I kind of resent them from what they did not give me or whatever? You got to move through your life and assessing yourself because that is the only way you're going to get a breakthrough by going to see someone. You say, you know what, I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable. I don't know what's going on. Can we have a conversation? Yes. And please get away from when you hear mental health, a mental health counselor, a psychologist, psychiatrist, and think, oh, the world is falling. Oh my God, somebody's going to find out I'm taking medication. Listen, you got to get away from that. That's why people are suffering in silence. People are committing suicide. People are just in the bed, unable to move because they have this notion that, oh, the world can find out that I can't get out of bed. Oh, the world can find. Listen, there is no joy in suffering alone. And I will bring your attention to a lot of time you see those people who commit suicide. Weren't there the life of the party? Weren't there the people who laugh the hardest, the loudest? Weren't there the jokester of the group? Go back and look and see. Those were their coping mechanism to cover it up, to cover their pain. They try to make everybody else laugh, and then they go home and just, they're dying inside. That's a no bueno, sis. No. All right. So I have written down mental health at home and abroad. That at home, home, we're dealing with what I said, the emptiness, the lack of connection you don't have, you can't give what you don't have. The stress of life, when you are an empty vessel, it's really hard for you to manage stress, isn't it? The sky is falling with everything that happens to you. And when that happens to you, you need some help. You want instant relief. So what do? You reach for the bottle, alcohol, smoking, drugs, very unhealthy behavior. Life is full of stress. And if you don't learn to manage it, it's going to manage you. You're going to make bad decisions. You're going to break relationships. You're going to get in debt. Some people go and spend money they don't have when they're stressed out. You know that, right? Some people overeat and they get into those very unhealthy behaviors and they get addicted to things. This is another topic. I remember years ago, maybe 2 decades ago, even before I saw any research, I said, I think some people are predisposed to addiction. I don't even know if I was a nurse then. And somebody in my Sunday school class just argued with me. I said, how do you explain that somebody can try some alcohol and say, oh, I don't like it, like I do. I taste beer and I'm like, oh, that's awful. Somebody said, oh, it tastes really good. And once you say it's good, you want more and more. And then you move on to the next one, the harder one, right? Same thing with drugs. That's my belief. And then the research now supports it, that there is a genetic predisposition to addiction. So I tell people, my kids, my 3 kids, just don't try it because you don't know if you're going to get hooked. Some kids dabble in some stuff in college, and some kids come out of it smelling like a rose. And then some others, that first hit, they got it. So we are dealing with all those things in our lives, the job, the stress. The people say microaggression, and I'm like aggression, period. There's nothing micro about aggression, the way some people treat you, at the job. And as a people, we know what we have to do. We got to be better. We got to do the job 3 times better. I always give the example of my sister who was working for an insurance company. And one day she called me. She's like, "Hola, Greta." She said, "Oh, sis, I'm going to the hospital to have chest pain." And I'm like, I'm a cardiac nurse at that point. And I'm like, "Don't let them do anything to you. I'm going to be right there." By the time I got there, they already had her in the cath lab because she had good insurance. Her arteries were clear. Women has something we call Prince mental angina. That means their arteries tend to spasm, and then it imitates a heart attack when it's nothing to do with plaque and any of that. So they discharge her saying, "Oh, it's not your heart." Same night, my brother-in-law called, "Oh, sis, we're on our way back to the hospital, more chest pain." So they did scan to see if we had blood clots, nothing, everything clear. Finally, my sister looked at me. She's like, "I think it's the job." They had just promoted her maybe like, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago to manage a department, and the job was piling up on her, and she was stressed and working long hours. She went to her boss and she said, "I want my little cubicle back. I want my job. You can take this job." So she went back to her little job, and they hired 3 more people to do the job she was doing. They will do that to you in the workplace because they see us as workhorses, that they can give us more work, just like they think we can't feel pain, we can handle it. So you are working for a decade, 2, 3 decades in that environment, and the stress is unbelievable. Stress at work, stress at home. You're raising a couple of teenagers. I'm a survivor. I have 3, and I survived these 3 children. I'm telling you. This is not fun raising teenagers, I'll tell you that. And if you're back there, you're empty, you don't have the skill to deal with it, they will bury you. Some of these kids, the stuff that they do. Yes, ma'am. So now you get to the point that you've survived the children. Oh, and then menopause happens. Oh my God. Okay. Do you think that makes things a little harder? Oh, yes. Those hormones are very important to your mood. You know, Hope Suzanne, I have had chest pains like that. It turned out to be the muscle around my heart spazzing, stress and grief. Oh, yes, ma'am. And there is something we call costochondritis, which is an inflammation around the ribs also that can mimic a chest pain. Listen, women present symptoms differently from men because we are emotional beings. Our bodies are made differently. Women have smaller arteries in your heart and everywhere else. So they might clog a lot easier, and then they tend to go into spasms when things are happening. So we just very complicated when it comes to the men. The men, a heart attack, pain, pressure. Women for heart attack, "Oh, I'm so tired. Oh, I'm a little short of breath," and it could be a heart attack. So we are special, okay? So now I want to talk about that you want to move abroad, okay? And before I get to that, let's talk about your life up to the point where you retired and you want to move abroad. We have things that I wrote down like besides the stress, you have abuse, right? Physical, mental, psychological, somebody who's always putting you down. I read about this woman. She was a high rise, executive wearing suits every day, but she was married to a man who treated her like a dog. he would just spew the most horrible things at her. Look at her like this. This is where the hatred of women comes in. Looking at her, I mean, this woman was grieving every day that she was in that relationship. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, why do you stay? That's a complex question. People stay for all kinds of reasons. Prestige, the fear of being alone. What would they say? I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me, but it is their reality. So you in these situations, some of them do get slapped around, but they stay. So if you know a woman who is in an abusive relationship and doesn't get out, try to be empathetic. It's not as easy to just get out. And from what we've been experiencing lately, once they say we're leaving, you might have just signed your death warrant. Some of these guys cannot handle rejection. Oh, if I can have you, nobody can. And just unalive them. I mean, every day I read about it. This little girl who's student nurse in Tallahassee, boyfriend shot her 9 times. He wanted to be sure, right? The guy in Virginia, everywhere. It's every day. Domestic violence is a cancer. We have a lot of it here in Panama. There's a woman who was unalived this week in our community here. She was arguing with her husband, and this one, she was so upset. The car was driving. She just opened the door and jumped out, almost killed her. We've had young men knife like a 17-year-old at a park in broad daylight. We've had young men just shooting their moms. Listen, this stuff is everywhere. And last night, I was reading that in Panama, the problem is so hard, so prevalent that last year, or was it earlier this year, the president created a specific office to handle domestic violence, domestic issues, and what we call femicide. I didn't know that word until I came to Panama. Femicide is the intentional killing of a woman, and I think I did another live about that alone. Up to May this year, they have had over 7,000 reported cases of domestic abuse in this little stretch of land right here. And those are the ones that were reported. The number is higher than that. It's a cancer. It is something that is being repeated, and it's a behavior that's passed on in families from one to the other. Women are not loved. When a guy said, I love you, does he really love you? Or does he want to bed you? That's why when I did the video about my decision to remain single in retirement, I got some guys make comment in my comments. Oh, you're just saying that because nobody's talking to you. I'm like, okay, I don't want you to talk to me. I just don't feel like I have the energy to deal with it. And what I tell all these sisters that are being killed left and right, and I'm like, it's okay to be by yourself. You don't need to be in a relationship. And don't rush into this relationship. Wait, watch, learn, and act accordingly. But no, the hormones are raging. Oh, he smells good. He looks good. He wears nice shoes. Woof. Okay. So that was stress, physical abuse, emotional abuse, the stress of being the sandwich generation between taking care of your aging parents and your teenagers who are driving you crazy. Then you have the medical issues, because sometimes it's not just emotion. And Tori can probably say something about that. I know in my practice, when I was practicing, when somebody came to me and said, oh, I just feel very tired, I'm depressed, I'm crying a lot. And that's why you got to take the time to take a good history and not be in a rush to write the prescription. What is happening? Tell me about your life. Oh, that's what I wanted to say earlier. This guy interviews people who are in the streets, and then the first question he always asks, like a 15-year-old who is a stripper, who is a prostitute on the streets with a, what do they call these people? With a pimp, right? And he always says, "Tell me about your childhood," and I appreciate that because that's where it started. And some of the stuff the children would tell you, it makes you want to give up on the human race. Some of the things these children have gone through, and you're 15 and you're selling your body so somebody can take the money, exposing yourself to disease. You know they're abusing you. Lord have mercy. So you may have an imbalance of the hormones in your brain. So when the doctor finally, after putting you to therapy and that didn't work and you're not getting better, they say, okay, try this medication. And then you decide, oh, I'm not going to take the medication because that means I'm crazy. Oh, if my friend finds out on medication, they're going to make fun of me. And that's why a lot of people quit taking their medication and then they go into a crisis and things happen. So I tell people, when you decide to move abroad, your problems go with you. You may alleviate some of that. A change of scenery, getting out from under the environment, the environmental stress, yes, is going to do wonders for you. But don't take it upon yourself to just cut your meds cold turkey, whether it's your psych meds or whether it's your medical, blood pressure, whatever. Okay? Give your body time to adjust and let a doctor evaluate and reevaluate. So, sis, whatever was going on at home and that you did not address, you bringing it with you. So what we talked about when Tori was talking to us on Thursday to our group is when you decide to leave, even though the situation was unsustainable, it was painful, there's still going to be a grieving process. You're going to grieve what you're leaving. Grief is not just about losing someone, it's losing anything. Something new you have to adjust to. So when you say, oh my God, I have to do all this stuff, I have this list, I got to sell the house, I got to understand that you may feel overwhelmed. This lady was talking to me. She said, I've been crying a lot lately. She's getting ready to relocate. I said, sis, it's normal. You're grieving. She said, yeah, I find myself going around and hugging my house. And I was like, how do you hug a house? Do you just hug like a wall? And also, I'm telling people, I'm not grieving. Well, I'm grieving. I'm grieving what's happening in my country. I'm grieving what's happening to us as a people. I'm grieving the fear of what world we're living for our kids. I don't have any grandkids, but I grieve that. So when I hear certain things, some days I cry for like a good 10, 15 minutes. But to me, crying is therapeutic. I've never shied away. They used to call me a crybaby anyway, so tears for me is nothing. But I don't stay down long enough. It's like, okay, once I finish, I feel better, wipe my face and then keep it moving. But you got to learn to do that. Some people are not as good as seeing what they're feeling, acknowledge it, and go through it. Something I used to tell people when I was in church. I said, the Bible says, when you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, when you're walking through, there is movement. That means you're not going to stay in the valley. The valley, figuratively, you're in the dumps. You sad, you depressed, but you walking through it. You talking to yourself. You are taking steps to get out of it. But if you don't just have the skills to get yourself out of it, that's when you get in that hole, and that is not a good place to be. All right. So as you transitioning, when the sister said, "Oh, I feel so sad," yes, you're gonna have the sadness. You're gonna have the anxiety. You're gonna have the fear of the unknown. Oh my God, will I like it like Maggie likes it? Will I be able to make friends, right? Especially if you're a very social person. Will I like the food? Will the people like me? You know, I hear people put questions. Oh, are the locals friendly to us? Or do they feel resentful? Or are they protesting again? It's going to be new. It's going to be a change. And you have to understand and accept that you're going to be going through those emotions. Then you have the family situation. Do they support you, or do they see you as a sellout? What do you mean you're leaving? Huh? I had a video about that. Oh, you leaving your kids? You leaving the grandkids? What kind of grandma are you? The guilt that they put on you. But you're at a place where you feel like you have to get out for your mental health, right? And I tell people, and when I do not counseling, when I do consultation, I say, not everybody can just cut the cord and move. But if you feel so overwhelmed with everything, your emotion, you just can't control it. You have palpitations and you're uptight, and take a sabbatical. Get away for a short time. There is nothing wrong with that. Go breathe. You know, some people come here and they say, this girl said when she moved to Panama, she said, I think I slept for 3 weeks. Because sometimes the stress is so bad that you can't get a good night's sleep. And research is showing it's not the quantity of sleep, it's the quality of sleep. Do you get into that deep sleep, which is where all the things happen in your brain, all the shedding and the cleanup and the washing off of that junk? When I was in South Africa, one of the reasons that I came back is that we started having those big spiders as big of my hand. I would wake up in the morning and they'd be right there on the wall by my head. Oh, you think I freaked out? I don't do critters. So I got to a point where I wasn't getting quality sleep. I would sleep with my phone in my hand and I would doze off and I would wake up and I would shine the light looking for the spiders. That's no bueno. That's not the way to live. And I started seeing my blood pressure stayed up. I was uptight, and I'm like, I can't do that. That's when you have to be true to yourself and say, no, this could be good, but it's not good for me. Therefore, I need to make a move. And that's why people stay in jobs that kills them, because they're like, oh, but the pay is good. But what is the cost to you? Would it be better for you to make less money and have more peace? But some people are not there where they can make that choice. So it's like self-destruction. No bueno. All right? So as you are trying to get over here, try to see if you can work on yourself. I think for some people, seeing a therapist while they're transitioning is the way to go. Because you might discover some things that you didn't even know. Do you know some people were having some issues in their interpersonal relationships? They really couldn't be intimate with their spouse, and they're like, what is going on? And usually we know something happened to that child back there, and they'll go to a therapist, and the therapist starts peeling the layers, and then found out she had been assaulted by someone. Now, that's awful. That's an awful discovery for an adult. And you got to be real careful. I will help that person maneuver this. But it's like when you have a wound and there's a scab on it. Sometimes you have to take the scab to expose the tissue. But then you pray that you can help this person move from that. It's not your fault. he or she was an awful human being, and that shouldn't define who you are. And then let the healing begin. But what you don't want to do is to keep going back and remove the scab over and over. I don't see any good in doing that. Once you acknowledge it, move towards healing, move towards healing. Okay? So, and of course, I wrote environmental. There's a lot about the environment that is detriment to our health, our mental health, our food supply. Oh my God. I don't need to say anything about that. You all know they're trying to kill us with the food over there, with the stuff they put on it. Did I hear the other day that Driscoll strawberries, they were spraying multiple chemicals on them? Like, I'm not surprised. Not surprised at all. I moved last November to a rental house that has scorpions inside and mice in the walls. Oh my God. Whew. No. That's a no bueno, sis. Ooh, I don't know what I would do. But how do you get unstuck so you can move forward? Go see a mental health person to help you with that, sis. Okay? Because when you get into this situation where you feel you don't know what to do, that's when you need some help. And this is like when I say mental health and people see it as a negative, it's not. You're trying to get yourself healthier, your brain, your emotions. And the mental health person can work with you. And if you need some meds, she would refer you then to a psychiatrist who can prescribe, because we all need some help, sis. When you try, people say, oh, prayer. Yeah, I pray too. But sometimes we need a professional's guidance to help you through the process. That's why they are there. Why do you think the jobs have, we need to call that EAP, Employee Assistance Program? Well, they know they're killing you with the job, but they say you can't go talk to that person. I just want you to be true to yourself and not try to say, oh, I can handle it. Okay, can you really, sis? Can you really? I remember years ago, I was in a relationship, a marriage that wasn't. And then we moved. I remember, I don't know if it's still true, but I remember seeing that they said there are some very high stress related events in your life, marriage, job, moving, divorce, death of a child or a loved one. And when you are in an unhealthy relationship and then you move away from things that your family, everything gets exacerbated. It gets amplified. And I remember going to see this guy. I was so sad and so depressed. I was never suicidal. But let me tell you, that dark cloud hole, I remember that feeling, and it was not pleasant. I was in the church. People tell you, oh, if you were a Christian, if you paid your tithes, you wouldn't feel depressed. I hope you don't believe that. Okay? Because I think Jesus himself was a bit depressed when he was praying and crying. Oh, and I know somebody's going to read that and say, oh, I'm going to hell. No. I know some, is it Lewis or something, people who wrote really beautiful books about God and fought depression hard. Listen, being a Christian and being human are not exclusive. The same thing that happens to a frail human, disease of the brain, your body, the emotion. Why do Christians die? Why do they have heart attacks? Why do they get cancer? Stop it. We are not children. We cannot believe this stupidity and give your money to a pastor who's flying a jet and tell you if you don't bring him half your paycheck, you're going to burn in hell. That's why I left the church. Do not come to me with that nonsense. No, man. So you can be a Christian and be fighting your own demon. That doesn't make you less of a Christian. So take that guilt off of your chest. Take that weight off, sis. A lot of things we just take on and we put it on. You need to shed it, throw it away, and say, I'm going to save myself. And then you reach out to someone like Tori and say, I need some help, sis. Can you help me figure this out? There is no shame in the game. So I think when you are already having issues and then you're contemplating such a move to leave everything that you know that you built and then go to a whole strange place in your 60s and 70s, sis, you might need help. And there's no shame in that. Acknowledge your feeling, work through them, and some of the things that you can do to try to counteract that. I'm I'm a cook. For me, cooking is therapy. So I got my thing. What is your therapy? What do you like to do to counteract the feeling of being in that hole? Right? I love to listen to someone called Sarah Brightman. I like her music. I put it on loud in the house. I'm cooking, and then the good hormones start flowing to my brain, and then it's going to get me out of that funk. I go for a walk. I smell the fresh air. Going out in the sun. The sun does wonders for your mood. Yes, it's hot here, but I can sit on the patio for like 5 minutes and get the sun to soak through my skin. It's good for me. Move. Eat healthy. Don't grab the bag of potato chips. No. You got to do things for yourself, sis. Don't just say, oh, Lord, please help me. Please help me, Lord. I'm depressed. What are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? Your health is your responsibility. No shame, no ma'am. But Tori, some people believe it's like those women who have babies and they get into an awful depression. Do you know postpartum depression can become psychotic? The people who are drowning their kids, that's because they've had this untreated depression. They get to hearing voices that say, oh, these children are crying too much. Oh, they're just kind of dragging you down. They're tying you down. You know those cases. You've heard it. Those women have believed that if I say I'm depressed, therefore I'm not strong. Something's wrong with me, and they suffer in silence and just kill themselves or their babies. OMG. Something that could have been treated. I can't believe in 2026 people are still believing that if you are on medication to stabilize a hormone in your brain, then you're crazy. That if a young mom with like 2 preschoolers and a baby and a husband who works, and she's left with those 3 kids, and then she drowns them in the bathtub because no one has extended a hand to her. I remember my girlfriend had a baby. Well, she had lost the first one, which was bad enough. And then she had her baby. And one day I went to visit her. I knocked on the door. She opened the door. She had a little screaming newborn in her hand. She was in her robe, and she said, oh my God, thank God. She just dropped the baby in my hand and ran up to her room. I don't know if she was crying, but she went and took a shower. We don't think about those things. Relieving someone of the stress of whatever is going on. If you have a friend who's a caregiver, taking care of adults, parents, do you ever say, hey sis, I'm going to come stay with them for a couple of hours. Why don't you go out? Why don't you go get your hair done, get your nail done, go eat, just do something. There is no amount of money you can put the value of that little support to this person. But we're so self-absorbed. We don't think about stuff like that. Okay? So now, when you get over here, it doesn't stop. Oh my God, you're on a high. You went to see Tori. She's talked to you. You're getting better perspective, but you're still excited about the move. When we were talking Thursday with Tori, one of our sisters is in the States. She's getting her stuff. She was here already, but then she went back to finalize. She said, "Oh, I was feeling some kind of way. I sold my car," and it was like, "Oh my God, what's happening?" That's a major thing. She said, "I'm 64. I've had a car since I was 16. Now I'm without a car." I remember going back home to visit, and I didn't have a car, and it was like, what am I going to do? I called the Uber to go 3 miles, and it was like $30. And I'm like, wow, this is going to be something, right? It does something to you. You're grieving the loss of your independence. When I was selling, I didn't sell my house yet, but when I was selling my stuff, every time I posted in the Facebook marketplace, but whenever somebody said, "Okay, I'm coming to get it," and they came and I stood there and they were just walking away with my stuff, part of me was going, this is something that I painstakingly chose. I ordered it. My house was decorated the way I wanted it. It reflected me. And then somebody is just coming and walking away with it. Nothing to do with the fact that I advertised it, but part of me was going. Ooh, you hear that noise on my street? But you grieve it. Your emotions are tied into the change, the big change. So then somebody will say, "Well, why do you feel sad? You're the one who's selling it." See, people like that, you don't want them around. You don't want them around because they're clueless. If they invalidate what you're feeling, you need to stay away from them. And that's why even today, I'm over here. There are some people, when I first meet them, I'm like, "Oh, she sounds real nice. Let's see." Because for me, as an observant, really in tune person, I watch people. And I always say, give them a little time. They will reveal themselves to you. And 9 times out of 10, they do. And then just like when I say, "Oh yeah, you know what? She could be a good friend. Let's see." And I'm not one of those who rush into anything. Let's see. Oh, you go have coffee and you have conversation, then you can see how this person's mind is going. And then after 2 or 3 months, boom, they reveal themselves to you. They don't want to do anything for you. They're self-absorbed. It's like, okay, we can be acquaintances, but we can't be friends. I don't need friends like that. If you say, "Sis, I'm feeling really sad." Well, why should you be sad? You're here in Panama, the sun's shining, everything is beautiful, everything's happy. What do you mean you sad? You don't need a friend like that. It's not a friend. Someone who cannot say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, sis. Tell me about it." That's the kind of friend you want. When people are talking about their issues, remember that. They're not looking for answers. They don't want you to fix their problem. They just want you to listen. That's why we women, we have a problem with some guys. Guys are fixers. When you say, "Honey, I want to tell you," okay, what is it? You want money? Do you want the credit card? That's not what you want. I remember someone said, when men are at work, they only have a limit of 10,000 words a day. They use 9,089 at work. So when they come home, they don't have any. And then you waiting for them to come to say, "Oh, to tell them about the kids and the mailman." They don't have the capacity to provide empathy and feedback. So that was so funny. But it's true. They want to fix it. And you like, "I'm not asking you to fix anything. I just want you to listen." And that is true of your friendships. So when you come here to Panama, you're riding high. Remember, you had a mess of emotions before you get here. You were anxious. You second guessing yourself. Am I making the right decision? Your family is, oh, I'm feeling warm. Your family is making you feel guilty. Oh, you leaving. Yeah, she's a sellout. Oh, let's not invite her to the cookout. She's already gone anyway. Your aging parents. What do you mean you're leaving? I brought you into this world. It's your job to take care of me. Guilt, guilt, guilt. But you saying, "I'm leaving because this is my time. I'm stressed out. I need this for me." All right. Of course, you label as selfish, self-centered, right? Some people don't talk to you, or your friendships look like, those are the friends that were not real friends. Your real friends will say, sis, if you feel it's the best thing for you, I support you. That friend you want to keep. The rest of them, good riddance, they were not your true friends. Listen, you got to let people go. Let them go. I think, was it TD Jakes who said that? Let them go. And if you're afraid of being alone, you're going to have a problem, sis. I love being by myself, but not everybody is like that. Some people get energy from other people. I don't. I can relate, but then I need to come home to recharge. I'm an introvert. So you need to know who you are. And if you're an extrovert, you're going to spend time developing those friendships of people who are going to be in line with what you want. All right. So remember that, just like Tori said, when you come here, everything is shiny. There is what I call the honeymoon period. Oh my God, Panama, the people, and you could see it when they're on Facebook or YouTube. Oh, Panama is beautiful. The people are lovely. The weather is nice. The food is amazing. And I'm like, it's fattening, but yeah, it's amazing. The food is amazing. You can buy, this guy said, you can buy a whole fish dinner for $3.50. I haven't met that place yet. I don't know about that place yet, but oh, $3.50, and everything is shiny and beautiful. You in the honeymoon phase. And those of us who've been here, we're like, okay, this is normal. It's normal for you to feel that. But after a while, you move from being a visitor to being a resident. Then you're dealing with all the setup, getting your internet, your rent, and then now it's not as easy as it used to be. The frustration comes in. I had a sister text to me. She said, I don't understand. You make an appointment with some people. You send them an email and they don't respond to you. I said, sis, we don't do email here in Panama. We do WhatsApp. If you want answers from somebody, you have to send them a WhatsApp. The email is like maybe in 2 months they'll see it. She didn't know. So she was getting all into her feeling, and it's like, calm down, sis. And everybody you talk to would say, oh, I had an appointment, they didn't show up here. They said tomorrow, they didn't show up tomorrow. We tell you about the mañana mindset. So there is a rewiring of your brain, managing your expectation, because that's going to affect your emotional health. So the grief of leaving your home. If you sold your home, you're going to miss that. If you don't drive like me, oh my God, you're going to miss not having a car. And I tell people, I was an executive with suits and everything. And if somebody were to see me go into the store with my backpack, putting my foot in my backpack and a bag and taking the metro, they probably say, oh, did she become homeless or something? No, my life has changed and I've embraced it. So don't feel sorry for me. Don't cry for me, Argentina. I said that tongue in cheek. But it's like, are you at a point where you can accept that your life is drastically changed? And we have sisters who don't walk like 2 steps. They're in the Uber for everything. Oh, that's her choice. I like to walk. And you say, oh my God, she was sweating. Yes, I sweat in the heat. And if you feel a certain way about it, got nothing to do with me. I can't take that on. You're going to miss the familiar. Oh my God. Do we miss the familiar? Things that you could have. You just went to Walmart and got everything you needed. Here, you got to go here. No life. You miss not understanding what's being said around you. Oh, she's talking about me? Well, did you learn Spanish? At least do you have a level of understanding that you can hear, even if you can't speak? That can be stressful. And it causes some people to return after years of being abroad. But there's so many good things. But you need to understand that some of those feelings can be temporary when you first get here. You get the rest, you're at the Airbnb, you're upping and running, trying to get your apartment, set up the way you want it. And I'm saying, come down, just make sure you have your bed, you got something to eat, relax, and maybe make a list and do a few things at a time. You don't need to have the apartment all decked and ready to go in about 3 weeks. I was in my apartment 3 years before I hung a picture. I'm not trying to impress people. Oh, you want to see if my house is set up? I left that. But not everybody can let go as easy as some others. So you don't stop grieving. You're going to miss your family. And I tell people, make sure in your budget, you budget for some trips back. And some sisters are back there a lot. Every two months or so, they got to make a trip back. Hey, if it works for them and they can afford it, by all means, I got nothing to say about that. It's none of my business. But understand that the connection, I tell people, I always say, you're not a tree, you have feelings. But when it comes to being back there, even though as bad as it is, you got roots, right? You got roots. You got kids. You have loved ones. You can't just cut the cord. It's easier said than done. So the mental health, if you had those feelings, those issues that were unresolved, you know, here there is something called BetterHelp that you can talk to a therapist online. And I know one sister here, you know, she's younger. She's also an LMT, a licensed mental health person, and she does counseling online. And there are some people here who I know is psychologists. She continues to work online. So moving abroad does not totally, cut off everything that you were feeling back there. It's kind of changed and moved, but you might still need help even after you move abroad because adjusting to a new normal as an older person can be challenging. The anxiety of the what ifs here in old age, oh, that's a whole different level of anxiety. The what ifs. What if I get sick? There was a sister somebody was talking about, when the money runs out or you don't manage your money well. Then somebody said there was a sister who was trying to borrow from different other sisters to pay rent. Ooh. Oh, massage therapist? I'm sorry, mental health professionals. I don't know how they say it over here. But it is very important that you keep that in mind, that when you come here, you might still need some help. Being in SWRA, our group, where you can talk to other sisters and feel that connection, that is important. Nobody is an island. If something happens to you, what's going to happen? So we talk about cremation, funeral, and all that. We are stressing over medical insurance and all. That's our reality. But that can cause anxiety. I have resolved in my mind that if I drop here in my apartment, I told the sisters, I said, don't be in a rush to come find me. Just walk slowly. Take your time. Because personally, I don't want a bunch of things done to me. I just pray that I'm not in pain. That's all. The majority of us want to be cremated. So we're not worried about, service and all. I don't want to be buried anywhere. I don't want to be transported back over there. I don't. So you got to do that work yourself in your mind. And even when I was over there, I had a do not resuscitate order with all my legal papers. As a medical person, I don't want a bunch of things done to me. If I have a terminal illness, keep me comfortable. That's what I say. I don't say that's how other people need to believe or whatever, but that's me. They did a survey of about 100 doctors, and they said, okay, if you developed a terminal illness, what would you want people to do for you? And 93 of them said nothing, just palliative care, keep me comfortable. The doctor said that. But then you have people, oh, no, 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 do everything for me and keep me alive. Well, that's your decision, sis. And hopefully your children will, uphold that. In Panama over here, the concept of do not resuscitate is not something they're familiar with. Because remember, it's a Catholic country, life at all costs. So when I talk to my doctor, it's like if something happens to you, they're gonna treat you. They're not gonna say, "Oh, she only has this much to live. Let's let her go." So you got to wrap your mind around that. Know where you're going to be and what the belief system is about health and dying. Okay, so that's really what I wanted to talk about in terms of mental health. I saw a lot of stuff in the chat, so I'm gonna back and look. And we have Tori here. Tori is a mental health person, so if you have specific questions, if you want to ask her, that would be great. Estoy bien, gracias. The brief class, yes. Uh-huh. Yes. And I did a video about having aging parents who kind of hold you hostage when you're trying to relocate. Yeah, that's another level of stress, right? Um, I don't have aging parents. When I left, I did not. But I think if you had parents that you were living behind, that's hard, right? Because they probably feel abandoned. And it also depends on the kind of relationship you had with them, right? Some parents had you under their thumb. I brought you into this world. This is your job to take care of me, and they're pouring out the guilt. So you're gonna have to handle all that. That's hard. I know another sister who was so distraught she needed to get out, and she left a 15-year-old. That's hard. This is kind of an impressionable age. I would worry about living a child at that age. But everybody is in a different, and that's why I never put judgment on anyone. I don't know your situation, sis. So whatever your situation is, I pray you make the best decision, not just for you, but for your family. But if you have a 15-year-old and you feel so distraught, that's when I say take a sabbatical. Go away for a few weeks, clear your mind, heal yourself. But you don't just cut off and go and then leave that child. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. All right. So everybody's got their own situation. Arizona, Suzanne. Yes. Hola. Yes, ma'am. There's always hope. But we just have to I think people need courage to do the self-evaluation and agree that I need some help, right? I'm not denying that prayer and meditation and other things cannot help. I'm not saying that at all. That's not my practice. But sometimes I know we need professional help. If you don't believe that, sis, we don't have to have an argument about it. Everybody is grown and makes their own decision. Um, Lynette is here. I have had chest pain, yes. We call those psychosomatic symptoms because, like my blood pressure stayed up, and I've been in Panama and I have no issues with my blood pressure. The environment, definitely. I was uptight and worried, and yes, and stress is a killer. And it can cause you all kinds of symptoms. Like my poor sister who ended up having a cardiac catheterization that she didn't need because she was stressed out. And she's been fine ever since. Yep, they hired 3 people for my sister's job. And I'm like, the nerve. Now, one thing we can add, everything I talked about, that was like regular life, right? But now, in the last, let's see, 8, 10 years, things have just magnified. So you have another layer of stress, right? And that I worry about. I worry about what it's going to do to some people's psyche, what is going to do. You know, all the inflammation they talk about. You don't think stress causes inflammation throughout your body? Yes, it does. So now with heart attacks and stroke and stuff, it's not just the cholesterol and plaque, it's inflammation. This is the decade of inflammation. Everything is based on that. Oh my God. They think we can do. I remember my last job, right? I was a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and we go to different buildings, and we take care of people. And I remember the boss, the lady boss, she called me one Sunday, and she said, Maggie, and then her tone was just totally off, right? Because I'm a professional. You don't talk to me all kind of ways. And she said to me, "Oh, how come you didn't do this note?" I'm like, "Excuse me?" She said, "Yeah, you didn't do this note." And I'm like, "Okay, can you send me a sample of what you're talking about?" Which she never did because I was not in the wrong. And then she said to me, "Oh, okay, from now on, you're going to have all your notes reviewed by another nurse practitioner." She was putting me down. Like she didn't trust my judgment as a professional or how I wrote my note. And that lasted about a couple of days. But from then on, I was like, total disrespect. And we deal with that every single day in the workplace. And that's why one day I was sitting in my car in traffic, and I looked around and I'm like, why am I putting up with this? Her disrespect and this. I'm like, I'm done. So I went home, did the numbers, and I said, I'm resigning. And I retired early. I was 62. I said, I'm done. Not everybody can do that. So you put up with the people, devaluing you, thinking you don't know what you're doing. They set traps for you. I was reading one of the soccer players from the is it the DR? No, the Congo, and he was talking about reminiscing about his life as a poor kid in Africa and how he had a sister who always believed in him, supported him, and now he's playing in the World Cup. And then he's saying, I'm reading. Usually, I don't read long posts, but I was reading this one because it was touching me. And then he said, but it's been dark since you're gone. I'm like, oh, what happened? He said she was 15. Somebody put something in her drink and killed her. And he said he doesn't even want the money. His spirit is broken. Now, this boy is somebody who's going to need to talk to somebody on a regular basis. That level of grief that he has is tremendous. So now he is reaching these goals. He said, I'm doing it for you because his sister was the one who was always supporting him. And he said everything he's doing is in her memory. And I was watching these two people in Australia yesterday. They were coming out of some kind of store, and a car came and ran into them. And there was a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old killed both of them on an impact. How do you survive something like that? You see what I mean? I also remember the pastor who was a pastor going to church on a Sunday. And then, he had I think he had 3 daughters, and then they were getting ready with his wife. He said, you all know, you take so long to get ready. I'm leaving. You can come church after me. So he left. Then his wife got behind the wheel with the 3 girls, and some semi or whatever came and killed all of them, the wife and the 3 girls. How do you survive something like that? Listen, when you start thinking that your life is awful and there is somebody going through something much worse than you, and how the human spirit can survive that level of loss, I don't know. Whew. They've always been degenerative, auntie. If you read history, they've always been like that. Nothing new under the sun. I heard this girl say today, oh, we're going through something we've never seen before. I'm like, no, sis. It's always been wretched and rotten. Okay? Nothing is new. Whew. Let's see. I moved last November. I think I said that. Yes. How do you get unstuck? I think we talked about that. Are you still attending church or serving God? I serve God. I don't go to church anymore. Mm-mm. Nope. I'm so disgusted with some of these pastors and stuff. I can serve God on my own. Nope. It took a lot out of me to do that move, and now I have to move again. Oh, well, sis, you might want to say, well, I did it once, I can do it again. Sometimes life throws you curveballs. And I used to always say, when you learn from one experience, be ready because the next trial is right around the corner, ready to hit you upside the head. And sometimes you don't even have time to recover when the next wave comes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And sometimes you say, why do some people go through so much? I don't have the answer to that. I don't know why some people go through the things that they go through. I really don't. Somatic counseling is powerful. I don't know what, oh, somatic. I don't know what that is. They focus on narcissistic abuse of all kinds. Okay. Well, we got plenty of those around, that's for sure. Yeah, somatic counseling. Somatic sounds like, I don't know, environmental. If you pay things, you still are human and can face depression. Absolutely. Is it Charles Lewis? I think it's Charles Lewis, or some of these really fancy, well-known writers and Christian. They suffer with depression. Yes, there's no shame in the game. We are all fallible humans, so imperfect, so imperfect. Okay. I walked away from the church, the sex, abuse, narcissism. I go to God. And when you say God, I always tell people, I don't even know how people survive this crazy world without some kind of faith, some kind of belief in something to kind of anchor you. I don't even know how that happens. Because if I was just floating around believing in this thing and this thing and this thing, I don't know if I would be firmly planted. But I never want to point the finger at people. We are all grown with our own beliefs. We can have conversation, but I'm going to be the person to say, you should or you shouldn't. No, ma'am. You're not going to hear me say that. No shame in working with a mental health professional. No, ma'am, there isn't. God help those who help themselves. Yes. He returns on the 24th. 10 a.m. Okay. Oh, is that the person that does somatic thing? Your private practice focus, and this is Tori, the mental health person, focuses on postpartum depression. Yes. Psychosis, people drowning your babies. Who does that? And then you know what? The world is going to say, oh, she's so vile. How could she do that? Something is not right up here, folks. Stop pointing the finger. Yes, I love Sarah Brightman. Yes. Oh my God. I think it is as co-creation. Okay. I'm not sure what that is. Yes, Maria. This is so inspiring and real. I'm so glad you tapped into this topic and kept it real. Yes. I'm waiting to hear of your experiences. If you are in the process of relocating, tell us how you're feeling. If you've done the relocation, tell us if there is something on the other side that you struggle with. Remember, just because you move doesn't mean everything is perfect. Okay? I tell you, I wake up some days and I cry because I get overwhelmed with the stuff that is going on, but I don't stay down too long. I'm able to, I do the self talk and I do things. I actively engage. I'll say, oh man, you've been in this house all week. It's time to get out. So I make myself get out, go walk in the sun, go around in the park. I make myself do these things because I know it's good for me. Is to counteract whatever it is that I'm focusing on, that I'm like, I can't watch this anymore. I shut it down. That's what you need to do. All right. God is experiencing life through me. We are, oh, okay. We return to 24th grader. Okay, yes, exactly. Thank you, Auntie. That's so true. People reveal themselves at some point. That's why you have to give them time to do that. That's why these women, oh, I met this guy 8 months later, we're married. Ding, ding, ding. Danger, danger, danger. Whew. Well, I would tell my kids, if you're single, stay single because it's crazy out there. Yes, I finally hung my pictures. I went home last year and brought them back, and finally, the whole 2 years I was here, there was nothing on the wall, nothing, and I was perfectly happy. Now my house at home was my little palace, right? But then I had to grieve giving that up. Yes, and I let myself grieve. Remember, you're walking through the valley, walking through it. Don't stand still. Got to keep moving. We all need guidance. I meant to say I support his teaching. Paying bills in the Banco General app has been challenging. Really, Carol? Screenshotting and translating is getting old. Oh, I took two sisters from here to Banco General. You have to have a Panama number to get the Yapi. And when I started the Yapi because I got tired of not having cash when I went to the little stalls or whatever. And a few times the workers had to punch the thing for me because I didn't know how to do it. Even now, I'm still not sure. So just let somebody, ayuda por favor, ayúdame, and they'll know exactly what to point. Yes, and I had to learn it. I'm still learning it. Living in Mexico is not perfect. I think I was where I was and adapt and learn and reach out to people one by one, meeting people within my community. Yes, you're getting a teddy bear, they won't cause stress. Greta's so crazy. I said, this sister said to me, "Oh, Miss Maggie, she's married. Oh, Miss Maggie, don't you miss not having someone when it's cold and you want somebody to wrap yourself around?" And Greta said, "I'm going to get me a long teddy bear." I have to say, I've been fine. I don't need a teddy bear. I'm good. Oh my God, that's funny. Yes, I love Yappy. Mini Me is here. Hola says, I have a self-development number and have Yappy, but go to Terceros. Oh, Carol, the way I pay rent, actually, my bank is Benismo. I just get the account number from my landlord and I set it up on the app as a third party. And you put their name, their bank, their account number, and then you save it so that when you want to do your next payment, it's just a transfer from your account to their account. That's how I pay. No problem. I don't use Yappy. You could use Yappy to pay your rent, but I don't. That was funny. All right, ladies, any other comments? Oh, my landlord is going to come here at 6, so I have to finish by 6. Do we have any? I have a water running in my bathroom, and I'm like, I don't want to be wasting water. We have enough trouble here with people not having water. So, whatever it is, we're going to try to fix it. Yeah, you can do that. I'm not working on keeping my same telephone number from US. You should always keep your number. I went through that when I went to South Africa. I turned in my US number. Big, big mistake. For banking, it's a no-no because they don't want to give you that second two-step authentication, whatever it is, using a foreign number. Just like Panama, when you want to set up electric and everything, you need to have a local number. Yep. Yeah, I have two phones too, but then I realized I didn't need to get another phone. I could just have another SIM card. But yeah, I've shared Maggie's videos with them. With who? Just to reassure them. Oh my God. We are in this together, and we come, we rise, and we fall. When you think of Juneteenth, and then you think of everything that's happening and all the different laws, things being dismantled. And I don't care whether you're here or there, it still affects you. Okay, it's how much of an impact you're allowing it to have. But just to say, oh, I know a sister who said, oh, it's no problem, nothing's happening. Well, that's wrong too. Because if you're in denial of what's happening, you think everything is hunky dory, that's not healthy. Mm. All right, ladies, anything else? I know I talked a lot, but I hope you are all in a good space in your head, wherever you are, whether you're here in Panama, whether you are over there. And the thing, it's like Panama is still like any regular country. It's got its own issues. This is not utopia. It's not perfect. But, I keep thinking, I see the videos of people being here and there. Oh, have you been to Uruguay? I have no interest in going to Uruguay. I love Chile. I could go visit Chile. I don't think I want to live there. They have too many earthquakes. So I have to do my due diligence and see where do I feel the best right now. And I tell people, somebody asked me, are you going to spend the rest of your life in Panama? Well, I don't know how long the rest of my life is. And I don't use never or always. I don't know. I am enjoying it right now. Right now, it works for me. That's the place I feel the best. So I'm staying here for now. Don't ask me about 5 years down the line. With everything happening, do you have any idea what 5 years is going to look like? I don't. And I can't sit here and wring my hands and just worry and worry. What's that going to do? I have no control over the future. So I'm just living for today, being the best human I can be. Not perfect, not liked by everybody. Trust me, there are plenty of people who don't really care for this person here. And then I have to say, sis, if I did something to offend you, you tell me and I'll be the first one to apologize. But if I don't know, I'm just moving on, moving on. And I try to be as friendly and respectful as possible. But not everybody is going to like you. You got to, we're old enough to say, oh, whatever, whatever. It's got nothing to do with me. Your opinion of me is just that, yours. There's too much for me to do to worry about what somebody thinks. No, don't waste your time, your energy about that. No. Okay. All right then. What time is it? 5:50. Things are happening everywhere that are beyond our control. Yes, ma'am. Love listening to your wisdom. Oh, thank you, Tori. Tori, the ladies want you back. We got to figure out how I can make it work. I know what a disaster this past week, but we need to figure out. I think I'm going to have to get a bigger speaker that's going to connect directly to, because being on the laptop wasn't the bad thing. It was the audio wasn't high enough, so I need to work on that. One restaurant did that for us. They had a cable and this guy didn't know what he was doing, but that room could only hold 15, and with our group we never know how many are going to show up depending on the topic. So yeah, they asked me if I could have you back. Yes, ladies, please hit the like button. That would be lovely. Thank you so much. I think you have, and I thank you for that. But anyway, I am going to sign off. Thank you for being with me and listening and sharing. Just remember, be kind, be understanding. Everybody is coming from a different place. We've all been hurt, and our tanks have not been filled from way back there. So we all a work in progress. Let's be kind and gentle. When somebody acts a certain way, and I'm like, one of my coping mechanism for people's meanness to me. When people have done awful things or said terrible things to me, first of all, I remember that word in the Bible that says, "Vengeance is mine." I never try to retaliate to say, "Oh, she did that. Okay, I'm going to get you." Not my job. Again, that's a wasted energy. And many times, the saved people will circle back and say, "Oh, Maggie, we're so sorry we did that." No, no, Pastor Nadia. I did not hold it against you, sis. I kept moving on. Okay? So to develop a forgiving spirit, I was the girl. If you did something to me, I would hang on to it. I would carry it around like a badge of honor. What? I can't believe she said that. I would carry it. And I remember I was maybe in my 20s. I'm like, you know what? This is not good. This is not healthy. I need to find a way to get rid of this. And I made a conscious decision to just let things go. And I remember one day somebody did something to me. And then the next 2 days, I was like, it didn't affect me. And I'm like, what happened? I got healed of that spirit of unforgiveness. Forgiveness frees you. So, what I do now, when somebody acts the fool or says something awful, I had an employee one time because she did something and I think I kind of disciplined her. Oh my God, she wrote the vilest note. And I remember this nurse came to me. She said, "Oh, Maggie, you don't want to see that. It's awful." I'm like, "Oh, let me see it." And I read, I mean, she ripped me upside the gut. I mean, I'm sure she was a racist, but she said all kinds of things to me. And I was like, okay. But I kept it in her folder, her HR file. And I was like, okay, whatever she said, that wasn't me. I don't know who she was talking about, right? So I make excuses for people nowadays. I'm like, you know what? Maybe she's stressed. You know what? Maybe she's going through something. And in making excuses for that person, it kind of frees me from taking that on as a personal attack. So when you're saying things to me or you doing things underhanded, like right now, there's a certain person, I know she's doing some underhanded things, she's kind of infecting other people, and I could see it. And I'm sitting here watching like I'm watching a movie. And I was like, okay, I see you. I see you. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm not going to address it with you. I'm not going to call you out on it. Let it go. Let it go. So this is really freeing. So if you don't, all right, Amy, and if you haven't done that, try it. Make excuses for someone's behavior and then keep it moving. Do the Kim. Keep it moving. All right, guys, I got to go. So lovely to see you again. It's been quite some time. Yes, Amy, I hope you're doing well. I am well, thank you. We're always summer. I need phone for connection outside of Mexico. Thanks, though. Okay. All right. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being with me today. I appreciate you, but I'm going to have to go. I'm expecting guests, my landlord. But anyway, I'll see you tomorrow. And at 10 o'clock, we're cooking. Tomorrow is going to be whatever we decided to be. Because I have stuff in my fridge I need to get rid of. All right. Take care. Au revoir. À la prochaine. Good night. Hasta luego.